Hi, I'm Xander, and welcome to my channel. Before I get stuck into what my channel is about and today's topic, I would like to pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people on whose lands I am broadcasting today, to their elders past, present, and emerging, and to any other elder who may be watching this. This was, and always will be Aboriginal land. Sovereignty was never ceded. This is stolen land. Hi, I'm Xander, and for those who haven't been on my channel before, I am a poet and a songsmith, and my channel is about my creative process, essentially the inspiration behind a piece, what it sounds like, and about the piece in more detail. So the piece that I will be working through today is a piece called Seeking Quicksilver, and it's a poem. And the process of this one was a little different to what normally happens with me. The process for Seeking Quicksilver was, I was like, I haven't written anything for a while. I would like to write something today. So I got some paper and a pen, and basically the poem is a stream of consciousness. I had an idea that popped into my head when I was like, what do I want to write about? What do I want this poem to be about? And it was basically a scene that popped into my head of me sitting with my back against an oak tree. And that opened up a whole bunch of other images and doors, because that particular image drew out of me like a connection to my spirituality, to my soul self, as opposed to the flesh and blood self, and the connections and disconnections between my flesh and blood me and soul me, if you want to use that particular word. It's a useful word, so I'm going to use it. I do tend to use language poetically rather than literally, so please also be aware of that. So with this particular thing, I just picked up a pen and I started writing. And I didn't judge what I was writing. I didn't grammatically correct it. I didn't try and rhyme. I just let it spill out. And then once I had a finished piece, then I went back over. And that was only then that I sort of thought, well, if I tweak that, it'll rhyme better. Or if I tweak this, the rhythm will be better. But I did that after the initial stream of consciousness. I'll just bring it up so I have the words. And the piece goes like this. I once sat sagely beneath the tree and focused on what was and wasn't me. The deep gouged bark pressed into my back. I looked up at my oak, sea of green on black, branches swaying like snakes in the sky. I found myself there, and in my mind's eye noticed I was traveling and yet sitting still, body patiently waiting as the silver soul will go traveling off with the spirits and sprites, leave day down below and travel into night. Landing in the dark, my wings disappear, wrapped all in shadows, the bright ones appear, surround me laughing with their glowing fey lights, teeth and claws hiding behind masks of delight, and I smile truly as I become me, my human dissolving, and I shed it with glee. Fingers grow longer, and nails and hair, teeth become sharper. I am more aware, feeling him near me, wandering thrill, knowing his heart beats for mine still. We gaze in the waters formed by the dew, our futures entwining, past and present too. I reach toward him and he towards me, his eyes quicksilver, an ocean unseen since the dawn of time, and far beyond then, dancing my shadows, aurora-tinged skin, licking that spark at the center of self. It blazes brightly, flame serpentined elf, all becomes brighter, such colors appear, swirling around me to hold me right here. be one forever, never look back, feeling such wholeness, not that I lack something I can't quite fathom or grasp, the fear of its spasms, the death rattle rasps, and that dull ache returns with such force. I remember what was, and as time takes its course, I find myself sitting beneath that oak tree, wondering what was and what wasn't me. So I wrote that back in 2016, so it was some time ago. But that was the process. I was in my kitchen in my previous house and wanted to write something, and that's what came through. And you'll notice that some of it rhymed and some of it didn't. If you look at my blog post, you'll see that there aren't any verses. It's not neatly arranged like some of my other pieces. It's just one long stream, written in fairly short sentences on the page, fairly short pieces. Because it was written as a stream of consciousness that is a poem. And it rhymes in places because it naturally rhymed in places. And then I tried as best I could to have a certain flow that went through there. And that flow is kind of like a snake, like that serpentine Quicksilver snake that flows through. The piece touched on so many different aspects of what was going on for me at the time and afterwards, me negotiating all sorts of things associated with identity, with who I am. Not only my spiritual side, and I was embracing that. I've been embracing my spiritual side since 2010, and it got intense. I think 2016 was one of my intense years where I had a big creative burst. And I was going through a lot of stuff that was very relevant for me in my spiritual journey. But it was also the start of other identities starting to emerge. My non-binariness, my asexuality, other particular aspects of me that to a certain degree made me feel disenfranchised from my flesh and blood self, where I felt more other than human in certain ways and shapes and forms. And that alienness that comes with being human, that alienness that was somehow more spirit than flesh, and that spirit was something other than what we see when we see human. And there are pieces of all of that in the poem. And it's one of my favorite pieces. I like how it just came out as something that made that kind of sense, that when I looked into it, I saw all sorts of bits and pieces that I really felt quite enamored by. But also this whole thing about the otherkin, if you like, the spirits and sprites that are described in there were not something that I was awfully conscious of touching on at the time. I mean, they're very, very important to me now, but at the time they were at my edges, and it was interesting that they came into center in that piece. And that was around the time that I started to have a spirit relationship, if you like, with something that was coming through in a more solid form in my my meditation spaces, or a being, if you like, that was coming through at that particular time, who was also other kin. So it was this interesting thing where they were coming through in that particular vocalization piece. My poems tend to come mostly from how I am feeling. I try and get out of the way because I'm not good at expressing my emotional self. I'm very good at pushing that into a different direction so that it comes out as an emotion that's not really what I'm feeling, it's what I feel safe expressing, if that makes sense. So with this particular piece, it was a fairly honest piece. It was something that was spilling out as my truth. And then when I saw my truth, it helped to open some more doors for me so that I was able to deal with some other stuff more holistic, more holy, more as a part of me, as a part of self. My poems aren't really written to be performed. In that they're things that I write because they are at the heart of me. My songs are slightly different. With my songs, some of them are meant to be performed. It depends why they were written. But a lot of my song pieces are written for like specific witch camps, specific rituals, as gifts for specific people, in order, so therefore to be performed for them. But my poems aren't like that at all. My poems are for me, and therefore when I express them, I'm really only talking to me when I write them. But I do put them on my blog and stuff like that because I love poetry. Not sure what it was about poetry or when I started to really understand that I really had a thing about poetry. I am a long-term, I guess you would say, fan of Lord Byron's poetry. For example, there's a lot in the different styles and experimental plays that Lord Byron did and his poetry pieces. You look through from early to late where he's exploring and finding his voice. And not that he's the only poet I like, he's just one of them. I like Yeats, of course, as well. Some of Keats, some of Shelley's, some... Anyway, there's a bunch, not all from that particular era. There's a lot of modern poets I also like, but I won't go into that in too much detail. But the one thing that I really loved about the poets that really grabbed me was their ability to be able to go into some kind of, I'm going to say, visionary story and use symbolic imagery in order to talk about something. One of my favorite poems of Byron is a poem called Lightning. I think it's called Lightning. Anyway, the word of power in the poem was lightning. He goes up into this mountain and he says lightning, and that's like a word of power. Really like that particular one. And that was, I guess, something that also spoke to me in a similar way, because it's a way of getting into self, into the heart of self. And going into the heart of self is like going into a dream. A dream landscape is not going to be the kind of landscape that we have in the here and now. It's going to be a shadowy landscape. It's going to be a landscape that has things in different colors than the colors that we're used to seeing. It's going to have things will move in different ways, shape in different ways. Be different to the way that we see them in the here and now. And I like that about their poetry, and I guess it's come through into mine, that aspect of it. So anyway, I'm going to end here, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got something out of it. And until next time, bye.